It's time to talk now about having a serious conversation about etiquette in the workplace. With more and more employers summoning their employees back to the office, it's time for the workforce to get a crash course on how to act, both in business and social settings, according to my friends over at the Harvard Business Review. 70% of business leaders say that the Gen Z population lack the necessary social skills to succeed at work. Meanwhile, 66% of business executives say miscommunication crops up between themselves and their employees at least once a day. And finally, 48% of business executives believe that miscommunication happens multiple times in one day. This, my friends, is precisely why, according to my friends over at Resume Builder, as a result of a survey of over 1,500 decision makers, they admit that at a rate of 45%, they already offer business etiquette training to their workforce, with another 18% planning to do the same before the end of the calendar year of 2024. This should come as no surprise to my friend Jules Martinez Hirst. She's a certified etiquette expert, business dining expert, and trainer, university speaker, and the co-author of The Power of Civility. She's dedicated to providing your employees with the necessary tips and techniques to handle proper etiquette in today's highly competitive global market and workplace. She's dedicated to giving employees the required social and business etiquette skills which will set your business apart from your fiercest competitor. And she joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Jules, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend. And I'm super excited to learn about your work to make us better etiquette savvy when it comes to the business sense, my friend. It's always great to see you, and thanks for a few minutes, my friend.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. Now, Jules, I know that you're dedicated to providing your clients and the organizations that you work with techniques and tools to improve their etiquette, my friend, to make sure that their organization stands out amongst the rest. So tell me what you do, my friend, and what makes it so fabulous.
Sure. So, etiquette is all about helping people feel confident in any situation. That's all it is. So if you go to a 7-course meal and you see all these utensils out, you'll know exactly what to do. You're not going to sit there. And this is one thing I hear from so many people is when they first started, going out post college or even in college or trade school, as they became older and they started going out to eat more, and if there was multiple forks or knives or multi-course, they didn't know what to do. So instead of feeling embarrassed or asking questions or looking like they didn't know what they would do. They would always say, "Oh, that's okay. I'm not hungry." Or, they just didn't have that confidence. So what I like to do, what I do, as you said, I like to empower individuals in social skills, leadership, and confidence through the lens of etiquette, which is all the social skills that we, I guess I can say, especially in a post shutdown world.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into that post shutdown world, my friend. As people are going back to the office,
Yeah.
we got into the habits of working from home and doing all of those things, and only being etiquette savvy from the neck up, because everything was on Zoom or virtual. But as you know, as people go back into the office, they're investing more than ever before into etiquette training, my friend. So
Yes.
why do you think employers are doing that, and do you think that trend will continue?
It will continue at least for a while. Um, and the reason why they are doing that is, you go to school and you learn the hard skills, right? I mean, that's what you go to school for. You want to be an attorney, you go to law school. You want to be a doctor, you go to medical school. So you go to school and you learn the hard skills. You learn the training. But the soft skills is something that you learn when you're around other people, or you practice when you go to the colleges will have, networking events or industry events where you go and you meet people. And that's how you practice getting good at going out and networking, just interviewing when you would go somewhere and be face to face. But then when shutdown happened, there was no more face to face. There was no industry meet and greets. There was no networking events. And if there was, because I know I did do some presentations to schools during shutdown, but they didn't have to keep their camera on. So, for all I knew, they were had me on the screen, but the camera was off, so they could have been watching TV, or they could have been doing something else. They weren't really engaging. So for those years that shut down, we lost that face to face, and that making eye contact, and just all of those skills that you get when you're in person. So now, as you mentioned, everybody is back to the office. Events are going on again. We're bringing that pandemic attitude with us. So if you go to a conference, if you go to a meeting and it's in conference room, you can't put a shield over you like you did when you were on Zoom. You could put your camera off, turn your camera off, and no one knew what you were doing. But now you're faced to have to interact and talk to people and handshake. Or do you not want to handshake? How do you handle that? So that's why I feel ticket consultants are the need for us right now, more so than ever. And this trend will continue, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jules, I'm also curious to ask you how etiquette in the workplace also translates, to our own personal and professional self-image, and the education that has to go around that. Because if we're confident at work, that our confidence in our personal life also elevates, my friend. So I'm interested to ask you to draw a correlation between self-image etiquette and the etiquette in the workplace. How do you think those are interconnected?
Sure, because how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So, like for example, when I do a dining etiquette course, and sometimes I'll get, oh well, I know what to do. I'll do it. I'll do it when I'm out. Well, no, because when you're out, like on a job interview, or somewhere where you need to make a good impression with your dining skills, we do what comes natural. So that's why I always say do everything at home the same way you're going to do it out, whether it be at work or out with friends, etc. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. How you show up in one is how you show up on the other. You don't magically at home, get ready and feel that confidence. And as soon as you cross the door, all of a sudden, I am confident now. Now I can do everything. No, it starts at home. It starts here first, right? It starts from within. And if you have that confidence will go with you on the social side as well as the business side.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we just talked about how companies are investing more into social and business etiquette. And a recent survey and study from Resume Builder discovered that 60% of companies today are investing in workplace etiquette and business etiquette. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that trend, and also, what do you think companies are investing in this for? What do you think is their hope when it comes to a return on investment? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So yes, I when I saw that article on resumebuilder.com, and I got it from a few different people. Hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? Use this for your marketing materials. It's true. Again, when we came out of the pandemic and we started going out and we started interacting again with everyone, we were already facing, apparently that's a tongue twister, we were already facing the whole genre where it was on their smartphone, right? There was kids biggest complaint before pandemic was that they were always on their phone. They would be listening to you, but they would be doing this, looking at their phone, and they were saying that they were looking, so they weren't making eye contact. So when shutdown happened, we gave that generation and everybody else a gift. They were learning and doing everything behind a screen. And again, like I was saying, there for a lot of companies and schools, they did not have to be on camera. So, again, that eye contact, even if you're on a Zoom meeting, your camera should be on and you should be paying attention to the person that you're in this meeting with. So now we're back out, we are engaging, we are interacting, and we found that there's a need for just communication, making eye contact, actually, being able to engage in a conversation, that small talk that already so many people don't like. They're like uncomfortable with that. I don't know what to say. What if I say something dumb? What if we already, with people who already don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's why so many companies are investing and bringing myself and my colleagues out into workplace so that we can work with with everybody and make sure that everybody's on the same level, making sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to communication. We need to put our phones away. We need to make eye contact when we're talking to people. Things like yes, ma'am, yes, no, acknowledging when someone's talking to you. A conversation goes both ways. It's just not me talking and you listening. That's not a conversation. That's me talking at you, not with you. So, and also what to wear. Again, if you had to worry about what you wore from the waist up and you wore pajama bottoms or leggings during the day, again, now we're having to go back into events. Well, what does workplace attire look like? And the dress code has completely changed from before to now. So, but again, it's making sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and Jules, you brought up eye contact a couple of times during our conversation, and I wanted to also talk to you about attention spans and how it's connected to eye contact. Because I think when you make eye contact with a person, your attention span expands. So I wonder your thoughts on the importance of sort of not only eye contact, but also investing in the conversation in order for our attention spans to lengthen. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so a couple of things there when it comes to eye contact. So with eye contact, it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So I always tell someone, to show that you're interested in the conversation, to make the other person feel comfortable that yes, that you actually care what I have to say, you have to make that eye contact. So, I always say either like look between, if you're uncomfortable looking in my eyes, look somewhere in here in between my eyebrows. That looks like you're making eye contact. When you're in the conversation, now you don't just want to be staring at somebody like this, right? Just because that's kind of awkward for the other person. You look, and then it's okay to look away, you look, but you also at the same time, when you're talking to someone, you want to be either nodding your head or, reiterate something that they said. So like if they ask a question, then you just throw it back. So just to make sure I heard this correctly, you want your question is XYZ, or something like, oh, I have you went there for for Thanksgiving break. I've been there as well. So that's how you keep the conversation engaged and going back and forth, listening, saying, and then using that, some of that information to formulate your response to keep that conversation like a tennis match, right? The ball goes back and forth over the net. It doesn't just stay on one side. It goes back and forth. Well, that's a conversation. You tell me something, I take it, and then I give it back to you. And then you hear something from what I said. You make your question or your statement, and then you send it back to me. And then it goes back and forth. And that's how we can keep our attention span in the conversation. It's
Yeah,
not so easy when you're talking to somebody who just talks, and doesn't really breathe or let the other person talk.
yeah, absolutely. And Jules, tell me a bit about breaking bad habits and the etiquette behind breaking bad habits. What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So, like any other habit that we break, it always comes down to repetition, right? You have to do it, so what is it, 26 times, or I don't recall the actual numbers, but you have to do it over and over and over again in order for that bad habit to become your new habit, right? So that's why when you take a class, or whether you take a class in person, whether you go to the University of YouTube, whether you find somebody on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and when you find something, you're like, oh, that's interesting. And, make sure you practice it on a daily basis, because that's the only way you are going to turn that habit into a new way of doing something. Yes.
I also wanted to ask you about the correlation between etiquette and good leadership as a leader. How do you think leaders can always improve their etiquette to be better leaders to get people to follow them? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So again, it's going back to just the foundation of etiquette. Etiquette is not about being perfect. It's about, having that confidence in any situation, but it's also about respecting other people. We're having respect for yourself, having healthy boundaries for yourself, knowing other people's boundaries, respecting others. And so a good leader, does that. They are aware of their community. They are aware of, they have respect for themselves. They have respect for them. They respect their boundaries as well as, and they know what their boundaries are as well. So that's how the two work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, I wanted to talk to you about breaking bad habits or not having the appropriate etiquette in social situations to succeed. Because, a lot of people may be good at the technical side of business, but when it comes to social situations, they're not the best in executing that situation. So how do you think we can break bad habits as employees, my friend? And how do you think we can elevate the social education of today's workforce? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So again, it goes back to mindful of what of social norms of what's going on, because etiquette rules do change at with time. For example, like a handshake. Before pandemic, it would have been unheard of to not shake somebody's hand. I mean, that's what you would hear all the time is you have to shake somebody's hand. And it couldn't just be, it's not just a handshake. You couldn't give somebody a limp fish handshake, right? It had to be a firm handshake. It had to be this, it had to be that. But now it's perfectly okay to not shake somebody's hand. Um, because because of everything that we went through. But what's not okay is not acknowledging someone. So you don't just walk by somebody without acknowledging them because somebody told you it's okay if I don't shake your hand. So it's keeping up with, like I said, with the social norms of what's going on. It's always wanting to learn and to improve, self improvement. And again, it's taking a class. It's taking a class. If somebody brings in an etiquette speaker into your workplace, go to these classes. And whenever I go and I ask, who here feels that you need to take an etiquette class, and I always get, and I said, an answer honestly. And then so people will say, oh, I don't need it. I took it in high school. I took it in college. My mom put me in cotillion, whatever it was. And then so I would say, okay, thank you for your honest answer. But all I ask is that for the 2 hours that I am here, because you're going to be here, I'm going to be here, at the very least, keep an open mind because you might learn a thing or two. So that's the other thing is if you do go to an etiquette class, or if somebody says, hey, let's go with me. I want to take an etiquette class. Let's, you go with me. Go with that open mind because you just might learn a thing or two because things consistently evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I also wanted to present a situation to you, Jules. So imagine that you're going out to your boss for a dinner, right? And he or she explains to you that your performance during this dinner will weigh heavily on your ability to get this promotion. So what do you think people need to know if they go out to a dining situation with that amount of pressure or expectation on them? How do you think is the best way to succeed in order to get this promotion? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so that's a great question because so many times and I will say this over and over and over and over again, that if a company, whether you're applying for a job or like you mentioned, getting up for a promotion, and any part of that interview process is over a meal, two things. Number one, it's over a meal because it's not as restricted as in an office. When you're in office, you feel a little bit more buttoned up. You're just it's more pressure. But when it's dining, the thought is, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's a relaxed environment. It's over food, so it itself so that we get to know each other. Just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in terms of folks with disabilities, Jules, it's important to me because I was born with a disability and I work outside of hosting this podcast to talk to businesses about the importance of hiring folks with disabilities. So I'm curious to ask you a two-part question in terms from an etiquette perspective, the etiquette of the person with the disability and putting their best foot forward. And from an attitudinal standpoint, how do you think we can change the etiquette or the behavior of decision makers that can give these people a better shot at a more equal opportunity? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So, number one, I believe that communication. right? So we need to be able to communicate and not assume or make decisions. Well, this person can't do this because of XYZ. Well, how do you know that? You're assuming for them. You're answering a question on behalf of somebody else. So, so if there's a position that comes up and this person is qualified, don't gloss over them because they may have a disability, because you don't know. Talk to them. This is coming up, I would like you to apply. And then it's up to that person to, to be honest with themselves. Okay, I can do this. I'm going to apply. I mean, it should be no different. We shouldn't, like I said, we shouldn't assume anything based on somebody's disability. That's just wrong. And there should always be a conversation about this. Again, this has come up. I think you'd be perfect. And put it on, and then just having that honest conversation. I can do that. No, I don't think I can do that. Now, is it lack of confidence because you're not sure, or because it's not in your skill set? Two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, I wanted to get your thoughts on the notion or the belief that matters cost nothing and are worth more than money. So I'm wondering your thoughts on that philosophy and where you come down on that notion, my friend.
Sure. So being kind to someone is not going to cost you anything, right? It doesn't. It doesn't. When you're walking down the street, or when you're in the elevator with someone, or you're passing somebody in the hallway, it costs you absolutely nothing to just make eye contact and give a smile. So that's why we say manners cost nothing, because it doesn't cost anything to be kind, to be respectful, and to be genuine, and to and have empathy if somebody is going through something, can, even if it's just being an ear. On the other hand, if you have all of this money and all of this influence, but if you're a really mean person, who's going to want to interact with you? I'm going to go with the person who doesn't maybe not necessarily have a lot, but is kind to me, then versus somebody who's going to always be mean, belittle me, put me down, and and consistently remind me that I'm not as good as you. I don't need that in my life. I'd rather go with the person who has good manners.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on findings from forums when it comes to communication. They found that 58% of workers feel that they have to be more available coming off of the pandemic from either a digital communication or communication standpoint. And 60% of workers also say that they have to increase their familiarity with digital communication. And then finally, nearly half of the workers surveys say that their productivity is affected by ineffective communication. So I wonder your thoughts on that and how we can eliminate stress through better communication. What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So that is true. And I was talking to a colleague earlier. We're talking about newsletters. Is that still a thing? She was saying how she's consistently, like, she just deletes them because they're just so long-winded, right? So, so there's something to be said, keeping it short and to the point, but not so short that I don't get the gist of your email. Also, too, if it has to be, let's go back to an email. If it has to be a lengthy email because you feel you need to put down some context, and then some direction, and then your call to action, make sure that you highlight it and separate it out. Use your punctuation properly. Don't mix in your email. If it's a text, it's a text. If it's an email, it's an email. Actually write it, spell your words out. Again, you can use Grammarly, you can use spell check, so that, because all of that's your impression. And if you're working for me, or if I'm working for you, and I I consistently send poorly written, misspelled, lack of grammar emails on your behalf, I'm representing you and your organization. So at some point, you're going to have that conversation with me. Hey, Jules, take some time and read over your emails. So yes, it is true. We do need to think about what we put in writing because we're representing ourselves if we're self-employed, or we're representing the organization if we work for somebody else, because everything we put out there is a representation and is a reflection of said impression.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jules, when it comes to the marriage between social skills and etiquette, how do you think leaders can really constantly improve their social skills? Because it's an ever-evolving thing as environments change. So how do you think social skills, leadership, and etiquette are interconnected, my friend?
Sure. So social skills, leadership, and confidence, through the lens of etiquette. That's what I say that I help you achieve. Again, the social skills, anything, just being able to hold a communicate, carry on communication, going to that networking event so that you're not in the corner by yourself, but that you can actually go out and do what you're supposed to do at networking events, which is building relationships, right? So eventually you do get that contract or you do get that business. That when you go to a networking event, it's not just pushing your services down somebody's throat. It's actually building that relationship. Leadership, again, being aware that you, number one, that you are a leader, and that that you are mindful to everyone that's in your community, that you have respect, you respect the boundaries. So that's where the leadership, social leadership, and confidence. Again, confidence. You need anything you do, you have to be confident. And if you're not confident yet, then practice it. Take the classes, learn how to do, change whatever it is that you feel that you're not doing properly. Let's say you're not holding your utensils correctly, you don't know how to network effectively, or you feel you don't need to. You don't feel you're good at giving presentations, then take classes. And then practice until you are confident, because that confidence or lack of confidence does shine through when in anything that you do. And I'll say this again, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jules, as a public speaker myself, I'm always looking for ways to engage an audience. So I'm curious, when you go to engage an audience, what are some key icebreakers you use to really get their attention? Because, it's my belief if you sort of meet them at their own level, they're more receptive to engagement. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that is like one of the things everybody says, but okay, I don't want to just ask about the weather, because that's what everybody always says, right? If you feel, if you're uncomfortable, not sure what to say, ask about the weather. Well, no, let's go one step beyond that. So I always say, if we just came off a holiday or we're going into a holiday, you can ask questions about that. Of course, you can ask questions about, like if it's an industry event, so ask about that industry. If you're at somebody's home, ask about the host. How do you know them? Did you go, oh, we went to college. Oh, really? Oh, so you also went to, I don't know, UCLA. Okay, what did you major in? You can ask questions like that. But again, it goes back to actually listening. Whenever you're talking to someone, if you are quick to answer their questions answer to finish their sentence, you're no longer listening. And so you want to make sure that you give the other person, your speaking partner, the opportunity to finish their thought, listen to what they said, and then take some of that information to ask them a question back, or to just to keep that communication, that conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jules, you and I both know that relationships are the heartbeat to networking. And One of the great things about networking is really getting into the nitty gritty of meeting people and finding out what their pain points are and how you can add value to them. So tell me about the importance of networking and how it really is the heartbeat of business, in your opinion.
Yeah, so your net worth is your network. I mean, you have to, you really got to go out there and put yourself out there. That's why, when I believe that the earlier you can teach someone how to approach someone, make eye contact, shake a hand, ask questions, be an effective listener so that you can carry that conversation. If you can teach, I will teach this to 10-year olds, 7-year olds, just, so that they can learn it, so that this is a skill that they can perfect as they're growing up into high school and college, because it is probably the number one tool that you can have in your pocket to be an effective networker, because you don't know who knows whom. And your next job, your next contract can come from anyone, right? I mean, we met on LinkedIn. So if I wasn't putting myself out there, you may or may not have found me. So, you have to, everything is about networking. Everything is about a two-way conversation.
You got to take that leap of faith in yourself, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. You got to believe in yourself, because no one's going to believe in you if you first don't believe in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Jules, as an etiquette expert, I'm curious if I put you in front of a room of 100 CEOs and your number one job was to improve their etiquette and really get rid of the mistakes that they're making from an etiquette perspective. I'm curious, how would you structure your time with these CEOs, and what are some of the most common etiquette missteps that employers or executives that are making that are really holding them back? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So the presentation would be a mixture of content and activities, right? Because nobody wants to sit in an audience for an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long, 30 minutes, and just listen to somebody talk, especially something like etiquette, where I'm constantly talking about things that you do and how you do it this way, it should be done this way. Nobody wants, I know that. So it would be, so the setup would be a combination of the two. So one of the things that I would work on would be listening to, one of the biggest complaints I hear is that employees don't feel like they're being heard, or that their time is being respected, that they feel that that people don't feel that the employee's time is as important as the higher up. So I would say, it would be going back to basics. Let's go back and let's review body language. So when you're talking to somebody and you're talking to them, and their body language goes from this to this, you've lost them. So let's take a step back and let's gain their trust back. Let's gain, that conversation back. So it would be on body language. It would be on communication. It's a two-way street. It's not just me talking at you, it's talking with you. And it's about when something goes wrong, because things happen, right? We're not perfect. So if somebody makes a mistake, how to handle that mistake without yelling at them, without making them feel that they are, not smart enough or whatever, just because they made a mistake. They make a mistake. We make mistakes. So how you approach it, how you handle it, and how you move forward also speaks a lot about you. So that's how I would spend my time with higher up leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing in life is perfect, but everything in life happens right when it's supposed to, right? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Duda, I'm curious to ask you about finding passion through etiquette because, once you create good habits, we want to continue them, my friend. So how can creating good etiquette habits improve our self-esteem? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So if you're going to go out to eat, and let's say your bosses or you're meeting your significant other's parents for the first time, two big moments in someone's life, whether it's the higher up or your significant other's parents or family members or close friends, um, you know, that's not the time to right before to Google how to properly eat a meal or how to, the how to. You should already know that way before, because when you're already nervous, we go back to habits, our old habits, right? We do exactly what we're used to doing because we're so nervous that we're not thinking about that. So if you have your dining skills down, the only thing you have to worry about is making a good impression on either your bosses or your significant others, family members, or parents, etc. When you go to that networking event, we've already discussed how important networking is to your future business, career, etc. So when you go to that networking event and you're confident, you know how to approach people, you know how to carry a conversation, you know how to give that handshake, and most importantly, you know the power of follow up and follow through. So many people do so well at the networking, then the next day life takes over, and that follow up, that reaching out, that's let's get to, it was wonderful meeting you at XYZ networking event. I would love to learn more about what it is that you do. Let's meet for coffee, let's meet for lunch. That's where the relationship really starts to formulate and take place. But so many people don't do that. Again, when you're composing emails, when you're if you know all of those skills, then everything else just falls into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the book that you co-authored called The Power of Stability, my friend, where you go through many of what we've talked about today and trying to put people on the right path from an etiquette perspective. So I'd love if you could tell me about the book, my friend.
Sure. So it was 19 etiquette consultants came together, and each of us wrote a chapter. So my chapter is 6 keys to building an exceptional professional image. Because that's it, and it goes over everything that we discussed. Because this, to me, is my heart. This is where I want to help people just soar in their professional, but also in the business life, because they do go hand in hand, right? So talk about dining, I talk about networking, I talk about dressing for success, I talk about the social side of things. So it's 6 keys to remember, to really be an exceptional professional, professional person, to have that professional image, because perception unfortunately is reality. How I perceive you is my perception of you, whether it's true or not. So it's so important that we always are mindful of the perception that other people take of us, because if it's not correct and if it's not what I want, then I and only I have the power to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jules, my final question for you has to do with legacy, my friend. I'm a huge believer in that we're all given a life compass at birth, and it's incumbent upon all of us to sort of point it in the direction that we want it to go. So when we talk about your own life and legacy, my friend, how do you want it to be defined?
Sure. So good question. And I was looking at your questions, and I was thinking about what do I want, my legacy to be? And I think it would be that one of the things, not only a fun mom, a fun grandma, that not only was I fun, but I also gave them, useful tools that they can take with them for the rest of their life once I'm not here. But then on the business side, that I did a phenomenal job at being people and breaking down the myth that etiquette is only for a certain social, economic, or a certain ethnicity, or it's about being perfect. No, because that's not what etiquette is. It's about having confidence in any situation. It's knowing what to do and when to do it. So when they talk about me, I would want that to be part of the conversation. Oh, she was so much fun in her classes. She made it so realistic that she showed us how it is applicable to everybody and that it's not just stuffy, old-fashioned rules. That's
Yeah,
what I think would be.
yeah, absolutely. And my friend is an old sports reporter. I have to sneak this one in and ask you, my friend. I know you're a big Dallas Cowboys fan, and it hasn't been the greatest of seasons this year. But I know you went to the Thanksgiving Day game, and I think it's like their first home win in almost a year, my friend. So you must have been delighted this weekend, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was so much fun to be there and to witness that. And I would have been happy either way. Well, no, that's not true. I would have been a little upset if they would have lost. Just
Well,
the
they've had plenty of experience losing this year, so being on the other side of the ledger must have been fun, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely, my friend. And tell me, Jules, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Sure. So you can always send me an email, info@juleshirst.com. You can go to my website, juleshirst.com. You can find me on Instagram at etiquette coach.
Fantastic. Well, Jules, I'm smarter for having this conversation. In the next discovery call, I have to book my next speaking event. I'm going to use some of the tools we talked about, my friend. So thank you for having a practical conversation of wisdom and etiquette with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.